Hey guys, hope you all having a fantastic summer so far. I know I am. I actually have a lot of cool projects that are underway right now that are tied to my blog and some of my goals for personal finance. And I've been really open about that with several of my friends. And it was really interesting coming out of one of the conversations because it seems like every conversation is ending up on personal finance because I'm that hooked on it. Um, Coming out of one of the conversations, I had a friend tell me that she was really surprised by my discipline in spending, and she explained to me how she almost purchased a $600 iPhone on a whim without talking to her husband about it, knowing that he might not be pleased with the purchase. And I was really surprised. And being somebody who listens to Dave Ramsey a lot, I told her, because I've heard him say this several times, I guess I should probably verify it for myself. But I told her financial infidelity is the leading cause of divorce, even more so than sexual infidelity, or so says Dave Ramsey. But I could see how that would be true because that is a security factor in a marriage. And if you can't trust somebody in that regard, it's going to damage your marriage. So I say this to her and I kind of explain to her, like, please don't do that, or at least talk to your husband about it first. And it got me thinking to the rule that my husband and I have, which is that if we're going to spend more than $250 on an item, we check in with one another, and we don't ever veto each other. We don't ever say you can't do that. But at the same time, it's like it's a check and balance. It's a way for us to make sure that we're not either one of us spending frivolously a lot of money on a single item. $250 might not be a lot to people, but this is a rule that we put into effect ages and ages ago, back when our household income was only, I want to say, maybe 40 or 50,000 a year, before we got married even. And the reason we did this was because I had been accepted into a program where I was traveling for work quite a lot, and I was getting to meet with a lot of executives. And one of the executives I met with was giving us advice on, I was maybe 24 at the time. So we were a pretty young crew, and I might have been the oldest at 24. So I think the other people I was traveling with were like 21, 22. And she was just trying to give us some friendly adult executive perspective on business and in life. And she was telling us how she was going through a divorce, and she was advising us on how financial issues were a big contributor. And ultimately, her advice for us was to get a prenup. She's like, you guys are leaders in the making, get a prenup. And I was floored by that, by the way. And my husband and I did not pursue that path. But I remember after this visit with this particular executive, I went home and told him another story she had told. And that story was that, she lives in an affluent neighborhood in Scottsdale, Arizona, and she was hanging out with this woman who, on a whim, had decided to buy herself a $25,000 car. And she couldn't afford it. I mean, it wasn't something she was buying outright with cash. She was taking out a loan and everything, but without consulting her husband at all. And when she told this story, I was beyond surprised. And she goes on to explain how, needless to say, years later, that couple got a divorce and they were absolutely not on the same page financially. And she indicated to us that in her current marriage, I think her divorce was kind of nasty. I think that's why she was so set on the idea of doing a prenup, because when talking to her, we knew that she was already getting married to somebody else. This was a drawn out divorce that went on for several years. And she said that having learned these lessons with her new spouse, they had set a rule that if they were going to purchase anything more than $350, they had to check in with one another. Now, my rule is $250, but the reason for that is because, like I mentioned, at the time that we had instituted this rule in our, core family, my husband and I had decided that would make more sense because that was a huge chunk of our paycheck. So ultimately, I'm telling this story because it's pretty insightful. This is a woman who had married somebody and they had grown together but grown apart, I guess. They had been together and married for a long time, and in the end, their financial disagreements and other problems too, I'm sure, culminated in their divorce. And she was telling stories of other people who had similar situations. And here I was just a few weeks ago talking to a girlfriend who was starting to explain to me that same line of thinking, like, well, it's my money and I should be able to do with it what I want. And I was really surprised by that. So I feel like my husband and I setting that $250 rule early in our relationship has been, I think, a godsend to us without us realizing how much so at the time. So I was kind of curious what you guys think about that. Do any of you guys set rules within your relationships to say, if you're going to spend a certain dollar amount, you have to check in with the other person? Maybe you make all agreements on all of your big purchases together. Maybe you have other, I guess, checks and balances for keeping each other in alignment with your overarching financial goals, because ultimately I think that's what it comes down to, is having that honesty, having that faith in each other's financial decisions, and having an overarching goal that really reinforces one another. So you have your individual goals, then you have your together household goals, and you reinforce that with every decision that you make. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this topic. It's something I've been thinking about a lot, and if you do have any of those checks and balances, would love to hear them. Please like and share. Thanks again, and have a great rest of your, well, I don't want to say rest of your summer because I'm going to be posting more videos, but in any event, have a great rest of your week. Bye.